Now, let's get right to it with our first franchisor presentation, another Broken Egg Cafe. I would like to welcome Jeff Sturgis. Jeff, thank you for being here today. We are really looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Appreciate you having me, and I appreciate the entire team of Franchise Times allowing us to participate. I am Jeff Sturgis. I am the Chief Development Officer for another Broken Egg Cafe, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit with everyone on the call today what makes our concept so unique and so interesting. So we'll jump right into it. My screen is not moving. Sorry. There we go. So who is another Broken Egg Cafe? Quite simply, we are an upscale breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. We offer an indulgent menu of Southern-inspired breakfast and brunch favorites with a full bar and an attractive and elevated setting. We've been around for about 25 years. We now have 76 cafes in 14 states. We're established ourselves as a leader in the full-time, daytime segment. We're known for our loyal guests, our full bar, our Bloody Marys, and of course, our indulgent food. We've recently gone into the off-premise business, forced by the pandemic of last year. So in addition to our traditional full-service dining experience, we're also very active as an off-premise option. As a business model, we are a one-shift operating platform. Our operating hours are 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., which appeals to both our franchisees and our employees because they can either have alternate jobs or other concepts that they can blend into their ownership and operation of one of our or more of our cafes. So we're actively growing and rapidly growing. As I mentioned a couple minutes ago, we've been around for about 25 years. As of today, we have 76 locations open, primarily in the southeastern and midwestern part of the U.S., and I'll show a map here in a second. We own and operate corporately 32 of the 76 locations, and the other 44 are franchised. We have over 50 cafes in some form of development between franchise and corporate locations. And again, kind of by definition, we're a polished casual or an upscale casual breakfast, brunch, and lunch brand. We also are known for specializing in certain menu options and being very bar forward. So again, if you were to see one of our menus or visit one of our cafes, you would see that while we have your traditional breakfast options, more likely you're going to find more indulgent upscale omelets, various versions of Eggs Benedict, some pretty indulgent menu items like a cinnamon roll French toast, and of course the classic shrimp and grits, which we're well known for. We're also really a very focused bar forward concept. Every one of our cafes has a full bar with seating for anywhere from 8 to 12. We utilize the bar both obviously for producing drinks for the guests dining in, but also people can sit and eat at our bar, as well as our bars and our new cafes are on an outside wall that attaches to a patio. So there's a pass-through format there as well that allows for some outdoor bar seating in addition. One of the things that's really driving our growth is capitalizing on the growing breakfast and brunch day part. Overall, the segment is seeing growth, both from a customer count standpoint, an increase in actual transaction sizes. There's a growing beer, wine, and liquor percentage in the segment overall, and particularly in our business. And again, of course, because of what's taken place in the last year plus, off-premise has suddenly become a viable and important part of the segment overall, and specifically within our concepts. And all of those features, all those items are really contributing to our growing average unit volumes in the cafes themselves. The other thing that's kind of unique about the breakfast brunch segment is that there's this fairly limited competition compared to other segments. Obviously, there's many competitors in the burger and the chicken and the taco and other segments like that. The breakfast brunch category as a specific defined category is not quite as mature in terms of the number of competitors. It's growing, no question about that. But there's certainly a lot of green space for the segment to grow, and particularly for another Broken Egg to grow within the segment. And as I mentioned, brunch has increasingly become a big part of the dining scene, and it's becoming a different day part, so to speak, and it certainly is within our four walls of our business. Most people just look at breakfast, brunch, and breakfast, lunch, and dinner as the three primary day parts. We really look at brunch as being a separate, unique day part, and as you can see, just by the proliferation of brunch In traditional restaurants and brunch and breakfast concepts, brunch is becoming an exceedingly interesting and popular segment, both for diners and for the business side of it. So I mentioned that we are growing. Again, we've been in business for 25 years, been franchising actively for 19. As we sit here today, again, we have the 76 cafes. We have opened 5 year to date. We opened 9 last year, and we should open another 6 to 7 this year. Again, a mix of company and franchise. So we're fully expecting by the end of this year to be at 81 open cafes. And at the projection of openings, both in the franchise and corporate pipeline, we would expect to open about 20 cafes next year and then get on a pace of about 25 a year, again, combined between franchise and corporate, for the next 3 years to achieve about 175 total cafes opened in about 3.5 year time frame. Our goal from a corporate and franchise perspective is to continue to grow the corporate base by about 5 to 6 units per year. And then on top of that, you call it a 15 to 20 franchise units per year to get to that 20 to 25 total growth openings. In terms of our current footprint, you can see here where we are currently located. So again, primarily located in the Southeast, moving up into the Midwest, pretty strong on the Gulf Coast and into Texas. We do have our first opening coming up in Arizona late in the summer. We have had a location out in Los Angeles for many, many years, and we just opened our furthest location up the East Coast in Williamsburg, Virginia last week. So our growth pattern and trajectory will continue to be kind of in those core states that are highlighted in the darker green in the map, both in corporate and franchise, and I'll divide that a little bit more specifically here in a second. But we would also consider growth through franchising in some of the other states that are not highlighted in green, primarily if we were able to engage with someone who's done this before, an experienced multi-unit operator who had an established base of business in a market that appeared like it could support our business. From a corporate growth standpoint, our focus is primarily the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. We are not looking to compete with our franchisees in any market. So if we're going into a market corporately, it's going to be a corporate market, or we're going to let a franchisee develop a market. But we are not in the business of competing with our franchisees for locations or for customers or anything else. One of the things that we're most proud of that's been kind of put in place over the last couple of years is the enhancement of our leadership team. We're led by our CEO, Paul Macaluso, who joined us just short of 2 years ago. In addition to myself on the leadership team, we have Jan Barnett in head of marketing. We have Jerry Snyder handling our finances. I have Tom Robertson overseeing our operations, and our amazing chef, Jason Knoll, who's our VP of culinary and supply chain. So together, we work really well together. We're all focused on building the best possible brand we can, providing the best possible experience for our customers, and the best possible experience and investment for our franchisees and our ownership. One of the things that really keeps us focused on a daily basis is our strategic plan and our daily focus on what it takes for our brand to grow and be successful. And we really narrow it down into 4 key areas, and those are really elevating our brand, delivering inspired service, profitable growth, and celebrating our culture. And you can see how each one of those break out. Elevating our brand is all about increasing customer count, driving brand awareness, improving the experience for our customers so they want to come back and share their experience with others. From a service standpoint, we are at our core a full service dining experience. Brunch is an occasion, so when people, and even breakfast is an occasion. This is not, people aren't coming to us for a quick meal. They're not in and out grabbing a coffee to go or a breakfast sandwich to go. It's not what our business is. So treating our guests right, encouraging them to enjoy their experience with us is a really critical part of our success. From a growth standpoint, as I mentioned, it's both franchise and corporate growth from a unit standpoint, but also improving the ROI and frankly, the top line revenue in our cafes. So we want profitable sales growth, not just sales growth for the growth of driving sales, but without increasing the ROI and the profitability for our franchisees. And then finally, we always want to celebrate our culture. We are a big believer in engaging our franchisees consistently and openly and working with them to collaborate on growing the brand. Same applies to our team and our support team members and our teams in our cafes. So we always want to make sure that everyone is fully engaged in what the goals are and the plans are for the brand, and we're celebrating that. And we're always looking to develop our own people internally and grow, whether it's within the corporate network of cafes and growing people from staff level positions to manager positions to territory positions, or in the corporate office environment itself, and really making sure we're growing internally and getting the best out of everyone that's involved in the brand. From a menu standpoint, so for those of you that have been to our cafes, hopefully you are you've enjoyed many of our options there. You can see here again, very indulgent menu. We are very focused on providing great value, both from a standpoint of the quality of the food and the quantity of the food for the price that you're paying. Again, very breakfast and brunch focused. There is a lunch menu as well, but most of our guests are in there, regardless of the time of day. They're in there. They're enjoying one of our breakfast and brunch items. Also, highlight the fact that again, the full bar. We can make any possible drink anyone could possibly imagine, because we have a full alcohol license in every single one of our cafes. Certainly, we highlight certain things, and I'm going to jump to the next slide to show that. So if you look at the bottom half of the slide, we are very much pushing forward, and we're calling it raise the bar, but very much pushing forward the alcohol portion of our business. Surprisingly, there's a lot of people who drink between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m., which is great for our business. And it's just a great enhancement to the overall brunch experience. So in addition to just, again, you can order whatever you want that you would get in any bar, we are very focused on delivering fantastic Bloody Marys, fantastic mimosas, both by the glass and by the pitcher. And it's, again, a big part of our business. We've also tested some off-premise consumption or off-premise sales of alcohol through in some cases, some kind of make your own Bloody Mary mixes or kits, I should say, and in some cases, actually individual servings of our favorite drinks. One of the things I also want to point out from a menu standpoint is that with an executive chef that's on staff and been with the brand for as long as he has, we have the ability to constantly test and evaluate different menu items and to see which items resonate most with our customers without losing focus on our core items that our customers love and appreciate the most. So we have 3 or 4 seasonal menu options that roll seasonal menu time periods throughout the year, where we roll through different menu items to keep the customer engaged and coming back looking for different options than they're used to getting in our cafes. And again, all of it is focused on being a little bit more indulgent, a little bit different than maybe some other breakfast places. It's not just your basic place to get bacon and eggs, although you can get that, but you want something a little more upscale, a little more chef driven. You're going to find that at another Broken Egg. From a customer standpoint, the pandemic has actually changed things a little bit for us. I mean, traditionally we've been a little female, skewed a little higher income, and we still have those customers. The pandemic has actually broadened to some degree our customer base. I think if you were to go into any one of our cafes in any part of the country where we're open, you'll see a pretty wide array of customers in there. You'll see families, you'll see groups, you'll see individuals, you'll see young, you'll see old. You'll see people, obviously taking a lunch break, and you'll see people maybe on vacation or just enjoying a day off or enjoying a weekend outing with a brunch. So we have a very broad demographic coming into our cafes. But again, we've historically skewed a little female and a little higher income, but that's balanced pretty well by just, again, the overall, customer that's, using restaurants and breakfast particularly a little bit differently now than they did prior to the pandemic. We're known for having our raving fans, again, because of the uniqueness of our menu, because of the full service experience, because of the full bar. We have very loyal customers who are very, very passionate about our brand and seek us out when they're in a community where we have one of our cafes. So we're very proud of the fact that we have a very high net promoter score and that our customers' experience with us is consistently very strong. As a matter of fact, we generally outperform and have consistently outperformed, kind of the industry in our segment when it comes to having those raving fans. One thing I want to highlight is this, and take a pause for a quick second, is to talk about, kind of how we have reacted and come out of the pandemic. As I mentioned, a couple minutes ago, we are and have historically been a full service dining concept. So we certainly were significantly affected, in March and April of last year, when for the most part restaurants were shut down across the country, and those of us in the full service business, almost overnight lost the entirety of our business. Because we owned and operated corporate cafes at the time, we were very quickly able to adjust or pivot, I guess is the popular word most people are using now. We're very quickly able to adjust and get into the off-premise business, establish relationships with the third-party providers, establish online ordering, use our loyalty customer base that we'd already had in place, and very quickly get the cafes that we wanted to keep open, get them into the off-premise business. And then once we tested that and got that into place in our corporate cafes, we began bringing the franchisees into the mix on that as well. And this was all over the course of a couple of weeks. This wasn't months. This was a couple of weeks after everything shut down. So we were very quickly able to really adjust our business model and add off-premise to our business. Of course, the times that were at that point, we got even more focused on sanitation and safety and cleanliness, which we were always focused on anyways. But there was just a higher degree of expectation from our customer. Like a lot of restaurant concepts, when we were off-premise only, we tightened up our menu, tightened up our SKUs. Some of our products didn't travel as well as others. Some of our products just wasn't demand. So we took some immediate steps to narrow the menu and make sure that we could deliver a product that our guests would expect from us. And of course, within the restaurant design itself, we had to make some adjustments and say, all right, now that we have a customer coming in and using us to go, how does that affect the layout of the cafe? How does it affect the functionality of the kitchen? So we had to make all those immediate changes in a short-term standpoint. And all those changes in one form or another have continued on now that our restaurants are all fully open, dining rooms are fully open, and we're kind of back to business as usual. And I'll talk about some of the changes in our unit level performance as a result of off-premise here in a minute. But I think overall, we adjusted very quickly as a brand. Our franchisees were very supportive of the steps we took and continue to be very supportive of how we handle the situation and how we've continued to kind of step by step come out of the impact to all of us in the restaurant industry. I want to point out some of the recognition that we have received over the last couple of years. We're very proud of the recognition we get from our friends in the industry, both in the restaurant and franchise industry. I think most significantly, I'll point out here that we have recently been recognized by Franchise Business Review as being one of the top food franchises from a franchisee satisfaction standpoint. And the other thing that's most notable is that Full Service Restaurant Magazine named us in January as the 2020 Breakout Brand of the Year. So that really spoke to everything I just mentioned about our reaction to the COVID crisis and just our overall focus on our franchisee satisfaction and ultimately our guest satisfaction. So very proud to share some great company with some other concepts that have achieved similar awards in the past. And we're certainly looking to make sure that we continue to uphold the standards of all this recognition that we have received. So let's jump into the development side part of the business now, and we'll talk about kind of the franchising, the real estate, and the construction aspects of another Broken Egg Cafe. Overall, our 3 to 5 year goals, as I mentioned, are to open 5 to 6 new corporate cafes per year, open 15 to 25 franchise cafes per year. We want to bring in 6 to 8 to 10 new franchise groups per year to add to our existing base. We certainly want to support our existing franchisees' growth goals. We want to attract high-quality franchisees, and as I mentioned from the map previously, we want to continue to grow in a sensible manner, both from a geography, from a trade area, and ultimately from picking the right sites. We also want to make sure we're always focused on building a cafe prototype that makes economic sense, provides a return on investment, both for us as corporate developers and our franchisees, and making sure that we're picking sites that we are confident that can consistently do $35,000 a week or more in sales. Our ideal franchisee is probably not too surprising. We like the multi-unit operator universe that's out there, not exclusively. We will certainly engage with folks that don't have a direct background in restaurants, but have a strong business background and can bring in an operating partner. And we will consider folks in smaller markets that have a strong tie to the community, and it may not be so attractive to a multi-unit operator, but that kind of local owner aspect of the business really would add a lot of value to that franchise group in that location. So, and then from a experience and financial requirement standpoint, you can see here we're looking for, again, we're looking for people who have a pretty sizable net worth and liquid assets available to invest. We are, and I'm going to talk about this in a second. We are a fairly, we're not super expensive to build, but we're not a low cost investment. So we need people that are properly capitalized to open one or more restaurants. I'll point out that many of our franchisees are experienced multi-unit operators of other brands. You can see some of those brands here, and we're proud to have all these brands represented in our system with some really great franchisees. From a real estate standpoint, pretty simply, we're looking for high quality, I'd say A- sites. We don't necessarily need to be in the corner of Main and Main, but we do need to be in a fairly highly visible location in a very active regional or strong trade area. We're generally 3,000 to 4,000 square feet of space. We like strong co-tenancy of lots of other restaurants, specialty grocers, big box retailers, mid-sized box retailers. We benefit from a lot of traffic in an area. We're not necessarily a neighborhood shopping center play. We're a little bit more of a regional play. So that's really kind of what we're looking for from a trade area and from a site standpoint. Excuse me. An end cap is always preferred. Inline is fine if it's prominent. We don't build many freestanding restaurants, but with conversion opportunities coming up, we would certainly consider freestanding restaurants. Our cafe design, again, I mentioned generally 3,000 to 4,000 square feet. We have a new design we introduced 2 years ago. We now have 21 cafes of the 76 that are either newly built with that design or remodeled. It's a more bright, open looking cafe than our past cafes. And next couple slides, I'll show a couple pictures. Again, I mentioned the bar forward. The bar is now prominently placed within the cafe, adjacent to an exterior wall. We're generally 125 to 150 seats, which we need because of the volumes of business that we do on Saturdays and Sundays. It's important to us to have the capacity to seat the guests that want to use us during those peak times. Here you can see a couple, I'm just going to quickly go through a couple slides of what our cafes look like. You can certainly visit our cafes or go on our website to see more. But again, bright, open, many cases we're using an open ceiling. Again, prominent end caps, great signage. You can see here the patios that we like to have anywhere from a 400 to 600 square foot covered patio adjacent to our spaces as well. So again, very critical, important part of our prototype. Development cost, we're generally on a net development cost basis, net of tenant improvement allowance, we're generally in the $750,000 to, I'd say broadly, $825,000 range. The last 10 or so projects that we've opened between corporate and franchise, we're averaging about $780,000 in net development cost, net of TI allowance. So we're very comfortable with the ROI in our cafes, particularly as it relates to the average unit volumes, which I'll talk about next. So there's a lot going on with the brand right now from a sales and a performance standpoint. And I'm just going to show some highlights. The next couple slides are screenshots from our FDD. But I think that the key things to point out here are we are having really an amazing year. We're comparing all of our performance here in 21 versus 2019 for obvious reasons. We had our highest weekly gross sales as a brand in our history. 2 weeks ago, we did over $3 million in sales across 75 locations. So quick math tells you that's over $40,000 a week for the system. I'll point out that our average unit volume in 2019 was $29,000 a week. So that's a material change in our business this year. Now, that was just 1 week, but overall, our business is consistently trending to those kind of sales volumes. Year to date, we are actually up 16% versus 2019 through actually this past Sunday. So very up-to-date data. So again, our AUV in 2019 was a little over $1.5 million. This year, we're averaging 16%, or we're seeing a 16% same-store sales bump over that $1.5 million from 2 years ago. So again, we're seeing really tremendous performance in our cafes. We have had positive comps in every one of our financial periods since last fall, except for one, and that was just around Christmas time when we had some weather and we had a couple random closure issues or temporary closure issues because of some locational issues in California and Nashville. But overall, we have been comping positive since last fall. Our off-premise sales, which I had mentioned a couple slides ago, prior to the pandemic, we were not in the off-premise business. It was just a reactive thing. If someone came in and just didn't want to wait, wanted some food to go, of course, we would provide it to them. We were roughly 2% of our business up until March of 20 was off-premise. We're now averaging almost 12% of our total sales are off-premise. Beer, wine, and liquor, again, it's always been a part of our business, but it's been growing over the last 4 or 5 years, and most significantly, it's really grown in the last year. So, coming out of the pandemic, people are consuming more alcohol in all kinds of restaurant environments, not just ours, but we've actually seen about a 30% growth in our alcohol sales, and our alcohol mix now measures about 13.5% of our overall sales. Year to date, our top 25% of cafes, for those that have been open all year, are averaging $44,000 a week in sales. And I think even as significantly as that, our new cafes, so any cafe that opened last year or year to date this year through, I'll call it January or February, those cafes are already averaging almost $34,000 a week in sales. So you can see very quickly the new cafes come online, they achieve a very high sales volume, and generally, grow and perform from there. So we're very happy with the performance of the new cafes and the performance of the new franchisees in those cases where they franchise, in the corporate locations in those cases as well. And then from just a pure profitability standpoint, our business model generally operates at about a 60% prime cost range, sometimes a little bit less, 58, 59. And year to date, we have been in that 60% range. And in 2019, for the entirety of the year, for our corporate cafes anyways, we were in a 60% range. So that's the target we have. And that's really what we've been achieving within our cafes from an operating standpoint. I'm going to quickly go through these next couple slides. These are screenshots of our current FDD. I'm happy to share our FDD with anyone that's on the call and wants to learn more. Some of the highlights I just went through are in these slides, and some of this is a little bit hard to see and talk through, but I just want to point out that we do have a pretty robust FDD. We have all of our 2019 information in there. We have 2020 information in there, and we have year-to-date through our first quarter information in there as well. So we're very transparent in providing information to our franchisees or prospective franchisees. We also track our period-over-period comp sales, which is the chart you see here on this slide. And again, I can refer you to our FDD and get that to anyone that wants to see one of our FDDs. So really, in summary, I'd like to say, why is another Broken Egg Cafe a great investment from a franchising perspective? Again, the strong and growing AUVs speak for themselves. It provides exceptional unit-level economics. The one-shift operation format is really, really appealing because of it's simply 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. operating hours with a little bit of overlap time for the team to open up and close beginning the end of the day. We have that very loyal customer base. The new cafe prototype has been well received by our guests and by our operators. The chef-driven indulgent menu is one of the primary reasons our guests love us. The bar forward approach has really provided a strong economic value for the business and created a real key differentiating point versus our competition. The segment overall is growing. This breakfast brunch segment is really, really popular right now. And then finally, there's growth opportunities. As I showed earlier, there's lots of room for the brand to grow, and we're looking forward to welcoming more franchisees into our system. So I don't know that we're going to have time for questions, so I will pause there and say I appreciate everyone's time and listening to us talk about another Broken Egg Cafe, and I'm always available for questions or follow-up offline as needed, and I'll rely on Franchise Time to connect us as necessary. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff. We really appreciate you being here with us today. Stay tuned, everyone. Our next presentation will be starting at 10:45 Central Time.